Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about why it's important to stop making excuses for the narcissist. Too many times people find themselves rationalizing, justifying, or excusing the behavior of narcissistic people. Not only does this minimize the severity of their behavior, it gives them an excuse, and they already have plenty of those. Dealing with narcissists is very difficult. They are hard to deal with, hard to communicate with, and hard to understand. Because of this, a rational person's mind struggles to come up with reasons for why they act the way they do. It's what drives so many people to look it up on the internet or to watch videos like this one. Unfortunately, the explanation is one that many people still have trouble with. Their own basic decency and humanity prevents them from really internalizing the truth, so the mind creates rationalizations or excuses for the behavior. He doesn't really mean that. He's just upset. Or she doesn't understand how she's hurting other people. He has a mental illness. She's had a hard life. He's tired. She's anxious. They're stressed out. It's a full moon. On and on and on. All these things might be true. The narcissist may even have other issues on top of these things, especially those with personality disorders, and it's still not an excuse to abuse people. Life is not fair. We all have our fair share of rotten things that happen or days that we are really stressed out. That's just the way it is. None of these things are an excuse for the systematic abuse and attempted destruction of other people that narcissists engage in. You see, the narcissist always has an excuse. There's always a reason they're upset. Always a reason they're not to blame. Always a reason they couldn't control themselves. It's a crock, to put it bluntly. It's a lie. Put a policeman in the room and see how fast their behavior comes correct. The truth is, they behave the way they do because they're choosing to. And making excuses for them reinforces that choice over and over again. Every time they get away with it, it just entrenches the behavior deeper. Why should they stop if it works? They won't. This is one of the biggest reasons narcissists don't change. They don't need to. The way they behave works for them in its own way. If it stops working, you may see a change in their behavior, but more than likely, they'll change their environment and try to find an environment where their behavior does work and does get them what they want. That's why they discard people a lot of the time, because the person has seen through them and the behavior no longer works to get them what they want, so they just leave. These people are very slow to change. They generally only do so if forced to do so because their previous behavior no longer gets them what they want, and even then, they'll usually just swap one toxic abusive behavior for another because the goal of the behavior is still the same. They really don't care about how their behavior is affecting other people. They'll only change it if they need to, and if they're given excuses for their behavior, they'll never need to. They have something to blame it on instead of taking responsibility for it. For example, a narcissistic person who physically abuses their spouse might go to jail for that. If that happens, they may stop that behavior because they don't want to go to jail anymore. However, they're still going to be a narcissist. Their goals are still going to be the same. They'll still be an abuser. It just won't be physical abuse anymore. And of course, many of them will just leave that relationship and find another person to have a relationship with rather than change their behavior. Narcissists, like all people, do what works for them and what makes them feel good. They are unlikely to give up behavior that accomplishes these things regardless of how it affects others or even how it affects them long term. They're all about instant gratification and short-term goals. For many narcissists, today is the only day that ever was, and all that matters is getting what they can out of it. They generally don't worry about tomorrow, and the only thing that matters from yesterday is whatever they believe was done to them. Their behavior from the past does not matter at all. They're turning over a new leaf every day. Every day is the first day, the only day that ever was. The more excuses people make for them, or repeat for them, or believe from them, the more it reinforces their behavior. They know right from wrong. They can control their behavior when they need to. They don't get an excuse for their behavior because there is no excuse for their behavior. They know it's wrong. They just don't care. How they feel or what they want is more important, and it always will be. There should be a very hard line drawn here using boundaries and consequences. A person having a disorder or some other type of problem is never an excuse for putting up with abuse, period. It's a shame they have that problem, and hopefully they learn to control themselves, but until they admit that their behavior is the result of choices they are making, the chances of that are pretty slim, and giving them free rein to abuse people is not going to help that happen. Loved ones need to remember that it is not their responsibility to fix these people, and that you will help the situation more by not excusing their behavior and by forcing them to take responsibility for it by refusing to put up with it. They'll never learn it's not acceptable to you if you don't show them it's unacceptable to you. Telling them is not enough. You have to show them using boundaries and consequences. And if they never learn then that's their problem. At least it won't affect you anymore. I hope that clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. Thank you so much. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.